שלימים הפך להיות אחד המוצרים הכי משמעותיים בכל בית בישראל, וכולנו מכירים אותו בשם דפי זהב. אחר כך עבר לפתח את יכולת המחשוב של דואר ישראל, והקים את חברת עורק. מי מספיק מבוקר, עוד זוכר את חברת עורק. ועל הבסיס של חברת עורק הוקמה אמדוקס. היא הוקמה בשנת 1982, ובשנת 85, 50% מהמניות שלה נרכשו על ידי סאודרן בל, 50% הנותרים המשיכו להיות מוחזקים על ידי...
אני לא מצליח להחזיק את זה.
אמדוקס הוקמה. אז זה חתיכה אחת סופר משמעותית בהיסטוריה של מוריס, והקמת אחת מהחברות המשמעותיות והחשובות בנוף העסקי והטכנולוגי של ישראל. אבל כדי להפוך את הדברים לאפילו קצת יותר מעניינים, מוריס הקים גם את חברת קורל וורד, חברה שמנהלת נצפים תת-ימיים בכל העולם, זה בטח משהו שלא ידעתם. לפני דקה דיברנו על זה שהוא צולל, ואנחנו תכף נדבר על צלילה קצת. 1975 החברה חנכה את הנצפה הימי, התת-ימי הראשון באילת, ואחריו עוד לא מעט נצפים במקומות אקזוטיים בכל העולם. הוא גם פילנטרופ, הקים את ארגון ליד בפיתוח וקידום מנהיגות צעירה, ומשקיע בהמון המון פרויקטים, גם בעולם של איכות הסביבה, גם בעולם של בריאות, בעולם של מדע והייטק. ב-2012 מוריס תרם $43 מיליון לטובת פרויקט בראשית. אחד הפרויקטים הכי מרגשים בכל כך הרבה מובנים. הוא היה באותה תקופה נשיא של עמותת ספייס-איי-אל, וב-2019, רגע שאנחנו כולנו זוכרים היטב, אני חושבת שלא היה כאן מישהו מאיתנו שלא ישב וצפה באינטרנט את הרגע הזה, המאוד מלחיץ ומאוד מרגש, שבראשית הייתה כזה דקה מהצלחה.
כמה שניות.
כמה שניות מהצלחה. ישבתי עם בנג'י ועם אריאל ועם זוהי, שתי הבנות שלי, עם כל כך הרבה ברק בעיניים, והתרסקה. ואני חושבת שכולנו זוכרים את הרגע הזה, שהיה מן הסתם אכזבה גדולה לכל ישראלי. אכזבה גדולה, אבל גם גאווה גדולה. גאווה על התעוזה הישראלית, מעוררת ההשראה, על העובדה שלא פחדנו לנסות לעשות משהו שאף אחד לא האמין שישראל תוכל. ממש אחרי, לא יודעת, מוריס לא נתן לדיו להתייבש לפני שהוא הכריז שהמסע לא יסתיים, וכהפרויקט ספייס-איי-אל יבנה חללית נוספת שתנסה להשלים את המשימה. באותו רגע, כשהוא הכריז על בראשית 2, הוא אמר, ואני מצטטת, זה חלק מהמסר המרכזי שלי לדור הצעיר. גם אם לא מצליחים, קמים ומנסים שוב. אני בתור זקנה תשבת בצוות הזה, שיש לה את הבנות הכי גדולות, אני יכולה להגיד לכם שעל הסיפור שבראשית דיברנו בבית המון, וכמה יותר מהכל הוא סיפור הצלחה. אולי אחד מסיפורי ההצלחה שמייצגים בצורה הכי טובה את כל הדברים המדהימים של המדינה שלנו ושל להיות ישראלים. לאורך השנים קיבל מוריס אין סוף פרסים, אבל כנראה הרגע שכולנו זוכרים, בטקס הדלקת המשואות ביום העצמאות ה-71 של מדינת ישראל. Thank you so much for having me in your unbelievable home. I can tell you that because of the light, we wanted all of you to see us, we had to close the window behind us. But believe me that behind that window, there's an unbelievable sea. You can see here like the amazing Tel Aviv or Bet Yanai sea, beautiful, and your home is beautiful. So thank you for having me here. And we had a lovely chat. I actually have lots of questions to ask you, but I'm going to start with something that we talked about before,
Okay.
which shocked me. So you ski, you ride horses,
Yes.
and you scuba dive
Yes.
at the age of 90.
Right.
All right. Tell us a little bit more about it.
All of these sports are actually very exciting, and I really live an exciting life, and I actually do what gives me enjoyment. And I'm not afraid of the risk. I'm not afraid of the risk of falling off horse. I'm not afraid of having a diving accident. I'm not afraid of having a skiing accident. Now I might, sure. I might be tempting the devil. But, you know, a lot of my friends are looking for ways to prolong their lives. They want to add years to their lives. And I want to add life to my years. I have a zest for living. That's who I am. I take risks, and maybe I shouldn't, but that's who I am.
So take us back, coming to Israel at the age of 26. What was it like?
Well, I'll tell you, I won't go into my history in South Africa, but when I came to Israel, I was 26. I just turned 26. I had two young children. I'd made a little bit of money in South Africa, and I had enough money to build a house, have a small meshik, small orange grove, and I felt that this was a good time to retire. I put up a building in South Africa, and I worked out that from the rent that I got by paying off the mortgage, and it would give me an income, and if I lived modestly, I could retire. And I felt the time to retire was when you were young, and you can enjoy your children, and you can enjoy life. And that's basically what I came to do. So when I came here, the beginning I had a small meshik. I had an orange grove. I would go down, I would water the grove. When the fruit was ready, I would pick the fruit. Later on, I got myself a truck. I used to ship fruit from the moshav to the market. I would ship chickens to the market. And for about a year, I worked like that, and it was exciting. It was a challenge. I'm not a farmer, but I did farming, and it was fun. It was lovely. I live on the sea. We could go swimming, and I could work. I'd come home. My wife was here. It was really a lovely life. But then I realized that actually Israel had a big problem. There were a lot of new immigrants. They didn't have work. And I looked for things that I could do to create employment. And I discovered that actually I had a friend who had a glove shop in Allenby Street. And we decided to set up a factory to manufacture gloves. We would buy the leather in Spain. We would cut the leather in Tel Aviv. I would go to the settlements and to the periphery, give women in their homes sewing machines. They would sew the gloves. We'd bring them back to Tel Aviv, and we'd bring them back to Tel Aviv, and then we would actually sell them. So I created employment so these women could work at home, and I created work for them. The fact that we had no market in Israel for gloves.
Who's buying gloves with like 40 degrees?
It was really a ridiculous exercise, but I learned. I learned. We used to make lovely gloves for Saks Fifth Avenue, lovely kidskin gloves. We made excellent gloves, but no profit.
That's funny. And there was something about also cars, no, that you tried to do.
No, first of all, we together with Kibbutz Kahn, we set up a bicycle factory. And we set up a bicycle factory to provide workers in Beit Shemesh with something to do. And this project, it was an interesting project, but we forgot to really check whether people in Israel really ride bicycles. Israeli workers did not go to work on bicycles. And Israeli mothers did not like to give their children bicycles to go on the road. Today it's completely different. But in those days, bicycles were... Anyways, there were...
So you had gloves that no one bought, and then you have bicycles that no one bought, and then what happened?
So anyway, then I've set up a cattle company in northern Galilee. The Chule, where they drained the Chule swamps,
Yeah.
it was a government farm. After they had their crop, I discovered that there was nothing that they did with what could regrow. And I made an agreement with them, and we had a cattle company. It's called the Chule Cattle Company, and we had 4,000 head of cattle in northern Galilee. That was also a little bit difficult because we were on the border of Lebanon and Syria and Jordan, and there were a lot of diseases, and it was very problematic. It was another problematic country. And actually, my first few years in Israel were hard, and my ambition to do something was great, but things just didn't work out. And one message that I actually would like to give young people who starting: it's not always easy to begin something, but what you've got to do is you've got to persevere. And if it doesn't work out, you should not become disillusioned. You've just got to shake yourself and start again. And basically that's what I did.
Yeah, again and again, it's amazing. And
I did that again and again and again. Yes.
Yeah, we many times talk about the entrepreneurship spirit, and as I shared with you, the Israeli Facebook team works with many entrepreneurs in the tech industry. But the entrepreneurship mindset started way before technology in Israel, right? So,
Yes.
so you're one of the first entrepreneurs in the country.
I'm not one of the first entrepreneurs, but I actually had the first big success. Actually, first of all, I must tell you that I had a bit of luck. I had a bit of luck that there was a tender for the Yellow Pages, and I met somebody from America who represented the biggest company in the world in Yellow Pages. And he asked if I would help him. I helped him, and I was sure that they would win the tender because they made the best offer, they had the capital, they had the experience, and they were the biggest people in the world. But I forgot that Israel, there was a lot of cronyism. You had to be connected. There was a lot of corruption. It wasn't really an honest tender. And this tender was really designed, as we say in Israel, Zayat Tafur Bishvilo. And they lost the tender. And the person who came to represent them, I guided him, and he felt very bad that he lost the tender. And I felt very bad for him. And I decided to fight this corruption. And I fought the case. And I got the tender for actually this Bell telephone company. And when they came to Israel to sign the contract, they wanted to pay me. And I said, no, I didn't do this work for money. I did this because I believe that you had the right to do business in my country. And I believe you were badly treated. And I think that this impressed them.
It's very impressive.
And then they said, well, we'd like you to work for us. And I said, no, I wouldn't do that. They said, why not? I said, look, nobody knows Yellow Pages. And you're going to lose money. So, and there's no fun in running a company that loses money. They said, you fought to get us the tender, but you think we're going to lose money? You're a strange guy. So I said, whether you make money or not is your business. I feel you have the right to do business in my country. They said, okay, fair enough. So we'll train you and we'll show you that it does make business. It is profitable. So I said, fine, then I'll take the job. And they said, you are strange. So I said, how come? They said, you didn't ask how much am I going to get paid? What are my conditions? I answered him, I said, tell me, you want me to run your company in Israel. Is it unreasonable to expect that you're going to give me a reasonable salary? He said, okay, that's fair enough. So what do you want? So I told him how much I wanted. He thought it's a little bit high. I told him, look, that's what I want. you don't owe me anything. Don't feel under any obligation. I did what I did because of a principle. So anyway, they gave me the salary I asked for. But I asked for the salary in Israeli lira. And he was thinking in dollars. So he gave me 3.5 times what I asked for.
That's amazing. That's a great story. A great story. Wow, that's amazing.
Yes.
So what happened with the Pesach and how come
So
this
it was-
ended up with Amdocs eventually?
The first few years were hard, and then we actually found a way to run the business properly and to customize it to the Israeli circumstances, and it became successful. And then we had a crisis. We used to print our books on it with using a special typewriter, printed on IBM cards, run them through a fast camera, and they stopped producing these typewriters. So we had to computerize, and computers were just becoming powerful. Small computers were becoming powerful, and we designed a system for a computerized system for running a yellow page company. But we had somebody, Ishi Levi, who was the Director General of the Ministry of Communications. He was my consultant, and he said, develop a system which is basic, customize it for your need, and then you'll be able to customize it for other customers. And that's what we do. And then I began selling systems for yellow pages, and we became the leaders in the world for systems for yellow pages. They were the biggest in the world, and we were the smallest, and we taught them a lesson. And we then developed a system that every yellow page company in the world was based on our system. And from that, I developed a relationship with Southwest Bell. And I want to tell you, if you ask me what is the secret of our success, I think it's relationships. We have the knowledge, but if you want to do business, relationships are equally important. People have got to trust you. People have got to believe what you say you'll do. They've got to believe in you. And we developed a good relationship with Southwest Bell, which subsequently became AT&T, the biggest telephone company in the world. And they became our partners, my partners. And I still today have a wonderful relationship with the CEO of Southwest, of AT&T, who also became the CEO of General Motors. He saved General Motors, which was a solvent company. He brought it back into business. So that was a relationship business. And then from that, the telephone companies became involved in cellular telephone. And then they became involved in television. And we were with them all the way. And we had one stage, we had 27,000 people working for us. And I think we were also one of the first companies in Israel to actually go public on NASDAQ. And it really, and we had good management, and we had intelligent people.
So you say we had good management, and I wanted to ask you if you need now to look back and say what you do really well.
Well,
You say we.
We had good management.
You say we, and I was
Huh?
asking you about you.
About me.
Yeah.
I've actually had extremely good luck in actually me meeting the right people. I have a partner, Shmuel Meitar, who's my partner. I'm actually not a good manager. I've got vision, and I can create relationships, and people trust me. But I'm not a good manager, and I know my defects. I have a partner, Shmuel. He's less imaginative than I am, but he's an extremely good manager. And this partnership was really critical to our success. And luck is important too. You know, you get lucky breaks, but in order to succeed, you've got to take the break and you've got to run with it.
Yeah,
You've got to recognize it and go with it. And that's what I do.
So we talked a bit before about this whole situation. You're not going to scuba dive in a lot, you know, like this whole situation of COVID and how it's impacting our
אז לי
life.
אגב, אני לא יכול לזוז.
And I wanted to hear your thoughts.
Well, first of all, like most people, I think we Israelis love to travel. We can't go to Jordan, we can't go to Lebanon, we can't really go to Egypt. We feel a little bit confined and we really need to travel. We need it like we need to breathe. And I feel very confined. And it's an uncomfortable feeling. It's very uncomfortable. I've never been as long in Israel without moving as I have in the last 6 months. Never. And I'm only waiting for an opportunity to get out and go sailing. Get out and breathe some fresh air outside.
Yeah. And economically, you know, we talked about the health system before, so maybe we'll touch about it as well. But when you compare this crisis, and we talked about 2008, and you've seen several big crises that the world went through, economical and otherwise. What do you think? You're optimistic? What are you worried about?
Well, first of all, I was born in 1930. In 1930, the world went through one of the worst economic crises it has ever had. People lost their businesses, they lost their jobs, they lost their lives, they committed suicide. People jumped from buildings. And I learned the history, and I was brought up in these hard times. And one learned what happened in the early days. 2008, there was an economic crisis. Lehman Brothers had failed. It looked as though all the banks were going to fail. It looked as though Goldman Sachs was going to fail. And if Goldman Sachs had failed, the banking system in the world would have collapsed. And if the banking system had collapsed, this would have been a major catastrophe. Because banking is based on trust. You have to trust that the money you put in the bank, you'll be able to get when you need it. But if you can't trust the banks, you don't get them your money. So everybody would run to the banks to get their money. The banks could not possibly give everybody their money because they have the money invested. The crisis would have been horrendous. And as a result of this loss of trust, I don't know how they would have put the system together if it had failed. Obama had just come into office, and he actually funneled money to the banks as fast as they could take it, with no regard for security and no regard for its return. And as a result of which, he saved the banking system, and the world actually recovered. And we recovered from the crisis. But it could have been bad. The crisis we're in now is a serious crisis. It's also it's got an overlay of political dislocation. And I think the world was suffering from the impact of globalization. People working all over the world had their lives disturbed by globalization. It provided employment for a lot of people in undeveloped countries. And that was actually very good. But it also created a situation that people in America, there's a lot of noise coming from somewhere.
Sorry, is your phone? Let me just check. No,
No.
just take it off.
That's fine.
No, but take it off. Maybe
No.
someone's calling you.
There was also a situation that actually people in undeveloped countries had the advantage of now being able to work and providing their goods and services all around the world. But people in America, the working class people, suddenly found that their labor was not that valuable. And they were beginning to be affected. And their situation has deteriorated. And I think that actually this deterioration has created an instability, which when the corona hit, it was actually it actually highlighted it and made it worse. And then we have a problem between America and China. And this conflict is not going to do the economy of the world any good. And right now we're suffering from these three factors that are all actually coming together at the same time. And this particular virus is a particularly bad and particularly difficult virus to cope with. It changes its form. It's difficult. I believe that with the effort being put to find a solution, it's hard to believe that we won't be able to find a vaccine. But to find a vaccine that we can trust and rely on will probably take another year. I think that we're in this situation until the end of next year. And now we're going to have to just work out what we can do with the economy. Because if we allow people to do everything they want to do, I think that the disease will really take its toll.
So everyone is trying to understand what are the right actions, and obviously Israel is very much in the spotlight right now. What do you think?
First of all, I think there has to be intelligent, professional control and direction of the situation. The direction in the beginning was actually good, and our results were good, and we were an example to the world. And then the political implications began to play, and we had, I think, bad direction. And today there's absolute chaos. Today there's absolutely chaos at the political level. You have politicians who are trying to direct a medical problem. This is very dangerous. And I think if we don't control them, and if professional people do not take control, I think we're going to really pay a tremendous price. And not only are we going to pay a tremendous price, I believe if they do not get control of it, I think the politicians will eventually pay a political price. They will pay a price for what they're doing.
And economically. So you gave Obama as an example of someone that took the right actions.
Yeah.
And you know, we talk about the German structure right now, and then what's happening in the US or not happening in the US. Economically, what do you think? Like as a principle?
Well, first of all, I think that actually what the government has professed to do is to make sure that money gets to people who are unemployed. You can't have people who cannot put food on the table. You can't do that. And when they say we've actually made provision and laws have been passed which will actually provide food and provide money for workers while they're unemployed, that's very nice. But the money is apparently not getting to them. Just technically, the money is not getting to where it should be, and it should be quick. And I'll give you an example. My son has an aquarium in Maui, Hawaii, one of the islands. And they had it closed down because of Corona. And the American government decided that companies that had to put people off work would be compensated. All he had to do was just put in an application, and the money was in the bank account of the company within 2 days. Here you've got people talking, saying, where is the money that we've been promised? Now this is very dangerous. And where I hear of a politician saying, when he's told that people don't, some workers don't have money to put food on the table. And he said, this is bullshit. I want to tell you, I think some of these politicians have lost touch with the public. And they will pay a price for it if they don't do something.
Have you ever thought to go to politics?
Absolutely, I thought about it, and it's the last thing in the world that I do. It's the last thing that I want to do. I think that for me that would be an absolute disaster. An absolute disaster. It's also not my thing. It's not my thing.
Yeah, I think that it's a problem, you know.
I think
it's a problem that strong people many times say it's
Yeah.
not my thing, because we need...
My partner, if he would go into politics, it's his thing. He understands, he thinks out of the box, he's highly logical, he's not affected by all things, what people say, what people do. He gets to the essence. It's not for me.
Let's go back to Space A. I want to talk about this project. So you joined the project pretty early on. And I wanted to understand why you decided to do this, why you decided to invest in a project which was at the time very much out of your scope, actually out of anybody's scope. Why? What were the reasons?
I'll tell you. I'm a member of a group called Sea Space Symposium. It's a group of people in America who are involved in space and the ocean. I was involved in the ocean because of my aquarium. But when I say they were involved in the ocean, they are people who are involved with marine life, with technology, underwater technology, with building submarines, and people in space, people like Buzz Aldrin, people from NASA, people today on the space station. They're an amazing group of people. I think it's my luck that I actually was invited to join this group. I was the only non-American in this group for a long time. And I had this exposure of space. Buzz Aldrin is a friend of mine. And he was one of the first men on the moon. And actually he was the second man on the moon. And when he told his father, Dad, he came back to Earth, he said, Dad, I was the second man on the moon. His father said, why weren't you the first? And put down the phone. And when I asked Buzz, why were you the second man? He said, because my partner was closer to the door. Okay, anyway, and I had this exposure, and I went to a lecture at the Tel Aviv University, and 3 young men said that they were going to participate in a competition, a Google competition, to put a spacecraft on the moon by a private company. And they decided to get together and they would actually compete. So I congratulated them and I asked them, do you have any money? And they said, no, we don't have any money. What do we need money for? I said, how are you going to start? So they said, we hadn't thought about it. So I said, come to my office, I'll give you $100,000, no questions asked, start. And that's how I got involved in the project. And somehow I sucked myself into the project, unwittingly. And I helped them a little bit in the beginning. And then later on I realized that they needed some organization.